From players breaking down on the greens to complete disasters on the very last hole. These are the 20 most brutal moments in golf history. And first, we start with number 20, featuring what might be the most disastrous bunker play at the worst possible moment. This is Thomas Bjorn at the 2003 British Open at Royal St. George's. 3 shots ahead with 4 to play, the stoic Dane was on the verge of capturing his first major championship. He had played brilliant golf all week, mastering the quirky bounces and brutal winds of links golf. Even better, he was about to become the first Danish player to win a major championship. The claret jug was practically engraved with his name. Then came the par 3 16th hole and that bunker. A seemingly routine greenside sand shot turned into the stuff of nightmares. Bjorn's ball found the steep face of the trap, and the downfall started. His first attempt caught the steep slope and rolled back to his feet. The gallery groaned. No problem, he thought. Just try again. But the second attempt? Same result. The ball trickled back down the slope like it was drawn by a magnet, settling mockingly at Bjorn's feet. By the time he finally escaped on his third attempt, making double bogey, his 3-shot lead had vanished into the English seaside air. He would bogey the 17th as well, completing the collapse. Meanwhile, Ben Curtis, ranked 396th in the world and playing in his very first major championship, became the most unlikely champion in Open history. The American was so convinced he wouldn't win that he had already booked a flight home before the leaders finished. And now at number 19, we have a moment so shocking, it left fans around the world absolutely speechless. Nelly, world number 1, the face of women's golf, and a player known for her calm under pressure, suffered a meltdown at the 2024 KPMG Women's PGA Championship that no one saw coming. Let's rewind. Korda entered the year riding high, having finally claimed her first major championship. She looked unstoppable, the kind of player who could contend every single week. But heading into Sahali, the cracks were already starting to show. 2 missed cuts in her last 2 starts had raised some eyebrows. Still, this was Nelly Korda. Surely, she'd bounce back on a stage as big as the Women's PGA, right? Not quite. Her first round was shaky but salvageable, a 3 over par 75 that kept her within reach of the cut line. But Friday? Friday was an entirely different story. From the moment she teed off, it was clear something was off. Bogeys piled up like a slow-moving train wreck, 8 in total by the time she reached the clubhouse. And the par 5 11th? A disastrous double bogey sealed her fate. The final scorecard? A jaw-dropping 81, leaving her at 9 over par and miles outside the cut line. For a player of Korda's caliber, it was nothing short of stunning. What makes this moment so memorable isn't just the numbers, it's the context. This was her 3rd consecutive missed cut, a shocking downturn for someone who had been the best player in the world just months earlier. To go from the heights of major glory to this kind of struggle left fans and commentators alike wondering, what happened to Nelly Korda? Here we are at number 18, which features Matt Gogol at the 2000 Pebble Beach Pro-Am. 7 shots, 7 holes, a seemingly insurmountable lead. Sounds safe, doesn't it? Well, not if Tiger is the competitor. This was Tiger in his prime, the year 2000, when he would go on to win 9 tournaments, including 3 majors. And Matt Gogol, a PGA Tour rookie, was living every golfer's dream. But he picked the absolute worst day to fall apart. What unfolded over those final 7 holes was like watching a nature documentary where the predator slowly stalks its prey. Tiger, sensing weakness, pounced with an eagle at the 15th, while Gogol's game began to unravel under the mounting pressure. On the 16th, a missed green led to a bogey, while Tiger added another birdie. Suddenly, the lead was down to just 1. By the time they reached the final hole, the inevitability of the moment hung in the Pacific air. The crowd knew what was coming. They'd seen this movie before. Tiger's eyes had that familiar intensity, while Gogol looked like a man trying to hold water in his hands. This wasn't just a collapse, it was a combination of Gogol's meltdown and Tiger's legendary fighting spirit. When Woods finally sealed the deal with a birdie at the last hole, completing a round of 64, it felt both shocking and somehow inevitable. The 7-shot comeback remained the largest of Tiger's PGA Tour career, and it talks about both his brilliance and Gogol's unfortunate place in history. Now at number 17, think you've had a rough day? Let me tell you about Michelle Wie's unbelievable Saturday at the 2008 State Farm Classic. She wasn't just playing well, she was on fire. And then, in one devastating moment, everything fell apart. Here's the setup. Wee had just shot a stunning 67 in her third round, climbing into second place and putting herself in prime position to chase down Yanni Tseng, the tournament leader. She was one stroke back, with all the momentum heading into the final round. The crowd was buzzing, the media was ready to declare her back, and it felt like Wee's moment to shine. But golf, as we know, can be cruel, and this collapse didn't happen on the course. It happened off of it. After finishing her second round, Wee made a mistake that no pro ever wants to make. She forgot to sign her scorecard. Simple, right? A quick signature, and she's off to prepare for the next day. But here's the catch. By the time anyone realized the error, it was too late. Rule 6-6B of the USGA rulebook is unflinching. Once a player leaves the designated scoring area without signing their card, the score becomes official, and any corrections are invalid. The worst part? She didn't find out until after her brilliant third round. That 67, her ticket to Sunday contention, didn't matter. Instead of competing for the title, Wee was handed a disqualification. Just like that, her tournament was over. Coming in at number 16, here we're with Doug Sanders at the 1970 Open Championship. This was a man who had won 20 times on the PGA Tour, known as much for his flashy wardrobe as his talent. But for all his success, Sanders had never captured a major championship. And now, on the 18th green at St. Andrews, the home of golf, he was 3 feet away from changing that forever. It wasn't just any 3-footer. This was to defeat Jack Nicklaus, the Golden Bear himself, and claim the Claret Jug. His first putt from 30 feet above the hole had been perfect, leaving what should have been a simple tap-in for glory. But then, as he addressed the ball, Sanders noticed something in his line. A speck of dirt? A tuft of brown grass? Whatever it was, it threw him off. Instead of stepping back to reset, Sanders awkwardly bent down to remove it without moving his feet, a break in concentration at the worst possible moment. He rushed the stroke, and the ball slid past the right edge. The sight of Sanders lunging forward, as if trying to pull the ball back into the hole with his body, became one of golf's most haunting images. He lost to Nicklaus in the playoff the next day, and that 3-footer would haunt him for the rest of his career. He never won a major championship. Now at number 15, this is Dustin Johnson at the 2017 WGC HSBC Champions. Imagine this. You're the world #1 golfer, riding high with a 6-shot lead heading into Sunday. You're on the verge of golf history, poised to become the first player ever to win 3 World Golf Championships in a single year. The trophy? Practically within arm's reach. But then, the worst thing that can happen becomes reality. For 54 holes, Dustin Johnson was untouchable. But on this fateful Sunday, he made not a single birdie. The best player in the world at the time couldn't make 1 birdie when it mattered most. But that's not all. While DJ was self-destructing with 5 bogeys, Justin Rose was putting together the round of his life. Starting 8 shots behind Johnson, Rose probably didn't even consider himself a contender. Who would? He only realized he was in contention when he glanced at a leaderboard behind the 14th green and saw he was just 3 shots back. Suddenly, it was game on. While DJ's round spiraled into chaos with 5 bogeys and a slew of missed opportunities, Rose stayed ice cold. His 5-under 67 was nothing short of clinical, a masterclass in seizing the moment when the door cracks open. And then came the finale. Standing on the 18th tee, Dustin Johnson still had an outside chance. An eagle could salvage something, anything, from the wreckage of his round. But fate had other plans. His approach found the water, a fittingly cruel end to a day where everything seemed to go wrong. His closing 77 was not just a stumble. It was a total collapse. By the end of it all, the leaderboard told the story. Rose at the top, DJ nowhere to be found. Next, number 13. Arnold Palmer, 1966 US Open at the Olympic Club in San Francisco. This wasn't just a collapse. This was a complete and utter implosion that still echoes through golf history. Palmer, the king himself, at the height of his powers, with his army of fans following his every move, was on the verge of something special. Leading by 9 shots in the final round, Arnie was about to claim his 2nd US Open title and his 8th major championship overall. But this is where Palmer's legendary aggressive style, the very thing that made him the people's champion, became his undoing. Instead of playing it safe, protecting his massive lead. Arnie kept attacking flags like he was trying to shoot 59. It was classic Palmer, go for broke, give the fans a show. Billy Casper, meanwhile, played with the precision of a surgeon, methodically dissecting the course while Palmer self-destructed. It was so painful to watch. At the par 5 13th, a bogey started to chip away at his cushion. Then came the par 4 15th, where a careless three-putt bogey brought Casper even closer. By the 16th, a disastrous double bogey wiped out the last of his lead, and Casper had caught him. Palmer's 9-shot advantage was gone. The next day's 18-hole playoff wasn't even close. Casper, steady as ever, won by 4 shots, claiming his second US Open title. For Palmer, this wasn't just a loss, it was a turning point. He would never win another major championship, and the collapse became a shadow that followed him for the rest of his life. Number 12 takes us to a moment as heartbreaking as it is unforgettable. Rory McIlroy's collapse at the 2024 US Open. After 10 long years without a major, this was supposed to be his redemption. 2 shots clear with 4 to play at Pinehurst No. 2, the same course where Payne Stewart had famously won in 1999. The stars seemed aligned. McIlroy was playing brilliant golf, and the galleries were willing him toward victory, desperate to see him claim his first major since 2014. But golf, as always, had other plans. The unraveling began at the par 3 15th, where McIlroy missed the green and couldn't save par. His lead shrank to 1. Then came the 16th, a par 4 he should have handled with ease. Instead, a sloppy approach left him scrambling, and he shockingly missed a 2-foot putt for par, a brutal mistake that left him visibly rattled. The 17th brought brief hope as Rory steadied himself with a crucial par save, but the damage wasn't done yet. On the 18th, with the championship still within his grasp, McIlroy's nerves betrayed him again. A 3-foot putt for par lipped out, sealing his fate with a 3rd bogey in the final 4 holes. Bryson DeChambeau, steady under pressure, took the title by a single stroke. The collapse was so devastating that McIlroy, one of golf's most media-friendly stars who always faces the music no matter how difficult the situation, skipped the post-round interviews. In the aftermath, McIlroy called it probably the toughest experience of his 17-year career, and announced he needed time away from golf to recover. Even Sir Nick Faldo, who knows a thing or two about major championship pressure, suggested this collapse could haunt Rory for years to come. Coming in at number 11, it's so brutal it's almost unimaginable. This one brings us to Robert Garrigus at the 2010 FedEx St. Jude Classic at TPC Southwind. And oh boy, this one is wild. A 3-shot lead, 1 hole to play, and a chance to secure his first ever PGA Tour victory. You literally just have to keep your ball on planet Earth to win. The 18th hole was playing as a straightforward par 4. All he needed was a boring par or even a bogey. Heck, he could have made a double bogey and still won the tournament. Instead, Garrigus decided to give us all a masterclass in how to throw away a tournament. Water off the tee? Check. Trees with the next shot? You bet. At 2-putted for a triple bogey 7, that 3-shot lead had completely disappeared. But in the sudden death, Westwood would go on to claim victory 4 holes later, while Garrigus was left to wonder how a seemingly certain victory turned into one of golf's most spectacular collapses. Number 10 takes us way back to Sam Snead in 1947. The US Open was Snead's white whale, the one trophy that always eluded him despite being one of the greatest golfers ever. We're talking about Slammin' Sammy here, a man who would go on to win a record 82 PGA Tour events, 7 majors, and was famous for having the most beautiful swing in golf history. But the US Open, that tournament seemed to have a personal vendetta against him. The 1947 heartbreak at St. Louis Country Club was the cruelest of them all. Snead was in a playoff with Lou Worsham. He faces a mere 2.5-footer to extend the playoff. A putt so short that Snead could probably have made it with his eyes closed on any other day. But this was the US Open, and these weren't just any 2.5 feet. They were the longest 30 inches in golf history. The ball slid past the hole, and with it went another chance at the trophy he coveted most. Back in 1939, he failed too. It's like the US Open had some kind of curse on Slammin' Sammy. 4 times he finished second, but never got to lift that trophy. The tournament that should have been his masterpiece became his nemesis, And here we are at number 9. Some golf moments are legendary because of the players, others because of a fan who had one too many. In 1987, Jeff Sluman was standing over the most important putt of his life. A 6-footer for birdie on the 17th Island green, the second playoff hole against Sandy Lyle. Sink it, and he wins the Players' Championship. The crowd fell silent. The pressure was suffocating. Sluman took his stance, gripped his putter, and just as he was about to strike, splash. Out of nowhere, a fan leaped into the water surrounding the green. Chaos. People gasped, officials scrambled, and Sluman had to step back while they fished this guy out of the pond. What was he doing? No one knew. Maybe he was celebrating early. Maybe he thought he was part of the tournament. Maybe he just lost a bet. But what we do know is that when the mess was finally cleaned up, Sluman had to refocus. He reset over the putt, took his stroke, missed. Would he have made it if not for the disruption? Did the unexpected chaos shake his focus just enough to cost him the win? We'll never know. What we do know is that the playoff moved to 18, where Lyle made par, Sluman bogeyed, and the tournament was over. A championship lost, a question that will never be answered, and one of the most bizarre finishes in Players' Championship history, all thanks to one very enthusiastic and very wet spectator. Now we're at number 8. And this one is special, because it features none other than the seemingly untouchable Tiger Woods. By 2009, Tiger wasn't just the best closer in golf, he was the best closer ever. Leading after 3 rounds of the PGA Championship, he'd done this 14 times before in majors, and won every single one. To the golf world, it was a foregone conclusion. Tiger didn't lose leads, period. But the 2009 PGA Championship wasn't just another chapter in Tiger's storybook career. It became the scene of one of his most shocking collapses, thanks to an unlikely challenger, Y.E. Yang, ranked 110th in the world. A player no one expected to contend, let alone go toe-to-toe with Tiger on Sunday. Yang didn't flinch, he didn't crumble. In fact, he played the round of his life. The pivotal moment came on the par 4 14th, where Yang delivered a thunderbolt of a chip-in for eagle, instantly seizing the momentum. The crowd was stunned, and, for the first time in a major, Tiger looked vulnerable. On the 18th, with everything on the line, Yang cemented his place in history. A towering approach shot soared over a tree and landed within 10 feet of the hole. A shot so audacious, so perfect, it left even Tiger shaking his head. As Yang holed the birdie putt, the absolute unthinkable happened. Tiger Woods, the greatest closer in golf history, choked. It was like watching Superman discover kryptonite for the first time, and the golf world would never look at Tiger quite the same way again. Coming in at number 7, and you probably won't believe this next moment, but back in 2015 with 6 holes to play, Ricky Fowler was done. Finished. A footnote in someone else's victory speech. At least, that's what the world thought. At that moment, Fowler wasn't even on the radar. 5 shots back, chasing a leaderboard stacked with big names. But then, something shifted. Something clicked. What followed was one of the most outrageous, clutch, and downright unreal finishes in golf history. It started at the 13th, birdie. A nice boost, but nothing out of the ordinary. Then, the 15th, another birdie. Now people were paying attention. The par 5 16th, eagle, a dagger straight into the heart of the leaderboard. Fowler was no longer a long shot. He was coming. But the real magic, that happened on the island green at 17. The signature hole, the ultimate test, the one that eats contenders alive. But Fowler? He stepped up and fired a dart to 4 feet. Birdie. And just like that, the tension at TPC Sawgrass cranked up to full blast. By the time he walked up to the 18th tee, the roars were deafening. He needed one more. One last birdie to keep the dream alive. And, of course, he delivered. Clutch. Cold-blooded. Vintage Fowler. A final round 67. A seat at the playoff table. And 2 opponents, Sergio Garcia and Kevin Kisner, who had just watched him torch the back 9 like it was a Sunday stroll. The playoff? It was a clinic. Fowler didn't just win, he owned it. He birdied 17 again in the 3-hole aggregate, then sealed it in sudden death with one final clutch putt. 3 birdies on 17 in an hour. Game over. Arms raised, crowd erupting. Fowler had just delivered one of the greatest closing stretches ever. Speaking of pressure situations, number 6 takes us to the 1991 Ryder Cup, and Mark Calcavecchia's meltdown that still gives golf fans nightmares. This wasn't just any Ryder Cup. This was the infamous War on the Shore at Kiowa Island's Ocean Course, where tension was already at an all-time high. Team USA hadn't won the cup in their last 3 attempts, and the pressure was mounting to bring it back home. So what happened? Enter Calcavecchia's singles match against Colin Montgomery. 4 up with 4 to play. You cannot lose from there. It's literally impossible. The American just needed to win or have any of the remaining holes to win the cup for his country. Well, Calc found a way to make the impossible possible, and what followed was horrible. The collapse started gradually, then picked up speed like an avalanche. 1 hole lost, then another, and yet another. By the time they reached the par 3 17th, Calc's game had completely deserted him. The lowlight? A near shank into the water on 17 when Monty had already dunked his ball, a golden opportunity squandered. And then came the coup de grace, missing a 2-footer for double bogey that would have won the cup for America. It never even touched the hole. The mental torture was so severe that after having the match, Calcavecchia literally walked away from the 18th green, down to the beach, and collapsed into the sand, sobbing uncontrollably. Counting down to number 5. This one shows us that even the smallest mistakes can have massive consequences. Here's the story of Hale at the 1983 British Open. This wasn't a collapse in the traditional sense. It was more like a brain freeze of epic proportions, and it came out of nowhere during the 3rd round at Royal Birkdale. Irwin was in contention, playing solid golf, when he faced a 20-foot birdie putt at the 14th hole. After missing the birdie attempt, he did what he'd done thousands of times before, walked up to tap in the remaining few inches. Pure routine, something pros do in their sleep. But in a moment, that still makes golfers cringe 40 years later. Irwin casually went to tap it in, and completely whiffed, missed the ball entirely. The gallery gasped. His playing partners stood in shocked silence. It was like watching a master chef forget how to boil water. The error was so bizarre that it took everyone a moment to process what had happened. That casual swipe of frustration, that momentary lapse in concentration, ended up costing him dearly. He lost the tournament by a single shot to Tom Watson. It's the golf equivalent of tripping over your own feet at the finish line. For a 3-time US Open champion and one of the game's most meticulous players, it was a humble reminder that golf can break even the greatest players in the most mundane moments. Let's talk about number 4, and one of the most excruciating moments ever witnessed at Augusta National. It's 1978, and the Masters is coming down to a dramatic finish. Gary Player had already put on a show, firing an incredible final round 64 to take the clubhouse lead. But all eyes were on Hubert Green, still out on the course, methodically closing in on the chance to force a playoff. As Green approached the 18th green, the tension was palpable. His second shot? Perfect. The kind of approach you dream about, landing 3 feet from the cup. The gallery roared. It was all there for him. A short putt to keep the Masters alive, but in golf, nothing is ever that simple. As Green stood over the putt, the worst thing that could happen happened. Out of nowhere, a radio announcer's voice cut through the still Augusta air like a knife. The interruption shattered the silence, and Green's focus. He stepped back, took a deep breath, and then pushed it right. Just like that, a green jacket slipped through his fingers and Player claimed his 3rd Masters title. The moral of the story? Sometimes the shortest putts leave the longest scars. And at Augusta National, even the smallest distractions can write themselves into golf history. Here's number 3. Every golfer dreams of an albatross. Almost no one actually makes one. But in 2018, Brooks Koepka pulled off the impossible, and it happened so fast, even he barely had time to react. Final round, TPC Sawgrass. The par 5 16th. Brooks crushed a monster drive, leaving himself a long but gettable second shot. The crowd expected an aggressive play. Maybe he'd stick it close for an eagle look. But then he didn't just get it close. Brooks pulled a 6-iron, took a smooth swing, and sent the ball soaring. It landed softly, took 1 bounce, then started rolling. The crowd noise grew. The ball kept tracking. And then, gone. Straight in, an albatross. The reaction? Pure shock. The crowd exploded. Brooks barely cracked a smile, and just like that, he'd made history. Only the 2nd ever albatross on 16 at the Players. He wasn't done either, riding that momentum to a course record-tying 63. Sliding into number 2. Imagine this. Kim is standing on the 18th green at the Kraft Nabisco Championship. She's 1 stroke ahead of the leader in the clubhouse and 2 strokes clear of the only remaining challenger on the course. The trophy is practically hers. All that stands between Kim and her first major championship is a putt so short it's almost insulting. This is supposed to be the moment of celebration. The crowd goes silent as IK Kim steps up to the ball. 1 foot, that's all. It's the kind of putt you'd make 99 times out of 100 without even thinking about it. But this isn't practice. This is a major championship, and the pressure is suffocating. She strokes the ball, and it misses. Not just barely, it doesn't even touch the hole. The gallery gasps. Kim looks as though she's been struck by lightning. With the miss, she's forced into a playoff with Sun Young Yu, and the writing is already on the wall. The playoff begins, but Kim is still reeling. On the first hole, Yu stays ice cold, draining a clutch birdie putt while Kim falters. It's over. What was supposed to be Kim's crowning moment has transformed into one of the most devastating collapses in golf history. And finally, number 1. The 17th at TPC Sawgrass has stolen plenty of golf balls, but in 1998, there was something different. Brad Fable had done everything right. A solid tee shot onto the green. Job well done. He started walking up, probably thinking about his next putt, when suddenly, the crowd started buzzing. People were pointing, whispering. Something was off. And then, boom. Out of nowhere, a seagull swooped in like it owned the place. It strutted over to Brad's ball, gave it a couple of pecks, and before anyone could react, snatched it up and flew away. Brad's just standing there, watching his ball disappear into the sky. And then, because this wasn't crazy enough already, the bird dropped it, right into the water. Just like that, Brad's shot was literally stolen off the course. Luckily, golf has a rule for seagull theft, who knew? So he got to replace the ball without penalty. But let's be honest, after something like that, how do you even focus? He went on to 3-putt for bogey, probably still trying to process what just happened. Oh, and if you're still with us, we have another great video for you to watch, right in the middle of the screen. Enjoy.